how many of you are familiar with XSEDE in general. If you've not already heard about XSEDE, it's an NSF-funded virtual organization that provides advanced digital services, HPC computing, to researchers nationally to support science. Now, what we do in the training group is we try to help people use these services. The link that you see, you'll see two, sorry, I just charging my mouse so that it doesn't fail in the middle of this, and I've lost it. I can't click on that link right now. If you follow the link, it's to the format www.xsede.org. My links today will have two formats, this base and portal.xsede.org. You'll see more overview information from the format you see on this screen and more user-focused information when the URL starts with portal. No, I can't. I've lost my mouse. I'm sorry. It might make some things later a little bit more difficult. So within XSEDE, there are a wide variety of resources available, and you'll see that there are clusters, there are some cloud resources, there are resources that focus on storage, resources that focus on visualization, and we're trying to cover as many of these as we can. Though, of course, there are some topics that go across many of these resources, like many of them use Slurm for batch processing, for example. And, of course, there's also a wide variety of software available on these resources. So we're here to talk about what training is available. Well, speaking from the point of view of the training group, we are not the only ones that provide training. So what I've made up here is a table that shows there are a lot of subgroups in XSEDE that provide training besides the training group. So we, and when I say we, I mean the training group, we provide online asynchronous tutorials, we do webcasts, and we do multicast live training monthly on HPC topics. The Broadening Participation group does on-site training, usually quarterly. Within ECSS, there's a group called ACO Extended Support, Training, Education, and Outreach, and they do webcasts, and they also contribute to live training events and participate in a summer international workshop, and they also do staff training. The service providers. 3 slides ago, I showed that there are resources from many institutions, and most, if not all of them, also provide training. And so you see there's training coming from a lot of groups, and I would have omitted a lot of important XSEDE training information if I had not talked about what all of these other groups within XSEDE are doing as well. So the next few slides, I'll say a few words about what all of these other groups are doing before I dive into what the XSEDE training group is doing. So ECO, Extended Support, Training, Education, and Outreach, this is a bullet list of their main projects. And what I've done is highlighted and bolded the pieces that relate to training. So the second bullet, they work closely with the Broadening Participation group within CEE to present at the live training events that they contribute to about quarterly. They also orchestrate the internal staff training seminars, and they work closely with the training group to help us get the training materials formally reviewed, and I'll talk more about that review process later. They also manage the U.S. participation in the International HPC Summer School. So, so they're obviously well integrated with training. The XSEDE Education Group is one that our host, Steve Gordon, knows a lot about, having led this group for years. So, Steve, if you want to present this slide, that's fine with me. Would you like to say a few words about what the education group does and how that overlaps with training?
Sure. The education group, which I currently don't lead, but the overall intent is to work with faculty at a variety of universities around the country that are trying to integrate computational science into their curricula. And so what we do is a number of campus visits and sometimes short half-day workshops where we introduce the faculty to not only to XSEDE and its resources, but to a variety of ways to integrate computational science into their science, technology, and engineering classes. So these happen fairly regularly, and then we continue to work with those campuses on things like putting together minor programs in computational science or data science or related programs.
It's my understanding that the collaborative online courses with Jim Demmel are also continuing.
I think it's up in the air, but we've been running this course, Applications of Parallel Computing, as a collaborative online course where the materials are put together by Jim Demmel or other faculty at the University of California, Berkeley, and collaborating institutions have their own course number and basically use those materials live using the materials that are online to teach the course at their own institution where they don't have to prepare the lectures, but they work with their own students on the exercises and other questions they have about parallel computing. So that's currently running now through an NSF grant, and I think those working with Berkeley have applied for continuing funds through the XSEDE program, and hopefully that will be funded and that will continue to run.
Is that all?
So if a faculty member is interested in participating in this collaborative online course, feel free to contact Steve or I, and we will put you in touch with the person who's currently running that program. Moving on to Broadening Participation, this group is led by Linda Ackley, and she reaches out to campuses that are not currently well connected with the HPC or computational research world, and
thanks a lot.
She does a great job spreading the word about HPC to campuses that have not formerly been part of the ecosystem. There is also a group called the Cyber Infrastructure Resource. I can't see my own slides because there's a, there we go, integration group. And this group is led by Rich Knepper, and as opposed to training from the point of view of the computational programmer, this group helps train people who are setting up clusters, installing software, and doing that end of the training, the more systems-focused activities. So the link at the bottom here, the bit.ly link, is a short blurb by at one of the universities that they helped install install a cluster, get the software up and running, and now this university has a compute resource that XSEDE helped them get up and running. So that's another source of training with a different focus. And I believe they have somebody in the group that can make site visits and help people from that point of view. So before I go on, that was a little bit about XSEDE in general and a little bit about other groups that provide some sort of training. Before I go all the way to the training group in specific, are there any questions about what we've talked about so far?
So I went ahead and so you can write something in the chat, or you can unmute. I muted some people because there was some background noise. So if you have a question, unmute yourself and go ahead. Don't see any questions in the chat, so why don't you go ahead?
All right. So XSEDE, the training group, is under a branch of the organization called Workforce Development, and what we are primarily trying to do is help people effectively use the XSEDE resources. Now, while that's our primary focus, I'm hoping that a much wider audience can also take advantage of our materials. So while we're focused on XSEDE resources, that includes an awful lot of material that is, I hope, interesting and useful to a wider audience. Anybody using OpenACC, anybody using MPI, anybody who can come to our online training and say, oh, I would like to know how to use R in parallel. We try to focus most of the material so that it's applicable generally, but then the exercises or the fine details might focus on something specific, like the KNL nodes on Stampede 2, for example. But when you're doing the general information on how to use MPI and OpenMP at the same time so that you can do distributed parallel, but also use all of the cores on that node to get as much parallel and speed out of your code as possible, that topic, while at the end the exercise is on a specific machine, that could be true for any of your clusters on any site. So this slide shows the most high-level overview of what the training group provides and does, and now I'll go into a little bit of detail. The main live workshop that the training group provides is run by John Urbanek and Tom Maiden at the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center. They run a monthly workshop series that is multicast. They present the materials live to a local audience, but at the same time, that lecture is broadcast to about 25 sites each month that are moderated and run by someone locally. Many of those local moderators are campus champions, but that is not at all a requirement. The topics that are covered are what Tom and John call the nuts and bolts of high-performance computing. So parallel programming via MPI or OpenMP, OpenACC programming, big data, and they also run a summer boot camp. Most of the topics are one day. The big data workshop is 2 days, and the summer boot camp, I believe, is a full week. So the satellite sites are chosen by Tom and John with a variety of criteria. So they like to reach sites they haven't reached before. If you've been a site for the past 3 MPI workshops, maybe another site who hasn't hosted that workshop before can take a turn. They're trying to reach a wide and revolving audience. So if you're interested in being a satellite site, by all means, contact Tom Maiden. If you have an XSEDE portal user ID, you are probably seeing the call for satellite site hosts, which is posted about every quarter. They're looking for hosts for the next set of workshops. And so if you want to know whether you have the local classroom resources to be a site, or exactly how it works, or how do you need to know the topic to be a moderator, Tom would be very happy to get any of those questions. Here is a sample agenda for one of the workshops. This is the 2-day big data workshop, and it points out that they typically plan the day to run from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, so that it doesn't cut out anybody on either coast. They're trying truly to reach everybody across the country. Before I go on, any questions about the monthly workshop series? Okay, that is the training group's primary live training venue. In addition to live training, we also have a large set of asynchronous training training materials online. Let's see. Here we go. That works. So if you go to the main portal site, portal.xsede.org, and you select the training tab, and then under that online training, you'll find a very hard to read. Here we go. You'll find a long list of on-demand training topics, and most of these, as you can see, are offered by CI Tutor. Those are developed at NCSA, and Cornell Virtual Workshop, and those are developed by my group here at Cornell. And these are tutorial type, on your own, start at any time, do the whole topic, or just go to the one page that has the help that you need. I very much welcome feedback on any of these topics, on the formats, on topics we're missing, and that's not just for the on-demand training, but for any of the training activities that I'm talking about this morning.
Susan, you might want to point out that if you go to portal.xsede.org, if you don't have a portal ID, it's free and very easy to set one up so that you can get to these materials and see the calendar and all that kind of stuff.
Thank you, Steve. So the create an account that Steve just mentioned It's right here. If you go to the main portal.xsede.org site, you're always going to see this Create Account button. And creating an account is your name, your email address. I don't think they ask for much more information besides that. It's created instantly, and once it's created, you can sign in either here or here, and that is required to do things like sign up for a training event. There are many places in the portal you can go to without signing in, but if it's required, don't see this as a barrier. It's as simple as creating an account right there. Thanks, Steve. So, asynchronous training. Another type of training that we provide are webinars. So, from the training group, we primarily run the quarterly new user training and the quarterly presentation from the allocations manager on writing a successful XSEDE allocation. And those are timed. The writing a successful allocation, of course, is presented during the periods of the year when they're accepting allocations. And then the quarterly new user training is typically run a couple of weeks after the new allocations awards have been announced. So presumably when you most need them. If you want to sign up for one of these, the best thing to do is watch the course calendar. So again, you go to portal.xsede.org, the training tab, and then the course calendar. And you will see everything coming up. And it's as simple as signing in and then registering using the button. Even if registration shows as closed, you can still try going to the workshop and signing up for the wait list. So don't let that deter you. Now, for those two particular webinars that I just mentioned, if you go to training, online training, we do save the recording of the two fairly recent renditions of those two webinars. So in terms, that is the main bulk of what we do is run the monthly workshops, develop new materials for the monthly workshops, and develop online training materials, update the materials that are already there, run webinars, and I should say that for the monthly workshop series, we are also taking those multicast workshops, editing down the materials to lecture lengths, and we're posting those on YouTube. The first topic, Open ACC, is now available on YouTube. In addition to the bulk of what we do, developing and providing training, we also have some activities going on that support those materials and help us to make those materials better. So one of those activities are badges. If you want to check, I went to this workshop, I want to see if I learned the basic information on that topic to earn a badge accreditation. And so we developed the badge ecosystem, the Moodle site, and the background structure for how we would be figuring out what materials need to be covered, how will we assess whether what should be included in a badge, how we would test whether someone's earned a badge. That was in development a couple of years ago, and for the past year, we've been rolling out new badge topics. So what we have available so far is OpenACC, data visualization, and big data, and we're rolling out a new badge topic every month to 3 months. The next one that will be available is OpenMP. It's finished, it's in review right now, and then that one will be available as well. And you can use these badges or take a badge any way you like. You may attend an XSEDE training workshop, and the person providing the training says, well, we just covered OpenACC. You've probably learned everything you need to earn the badge. Why not go to the site and try that out? Or you may say, well, I already know OpenACC. Maybe I can earn this badge without attending the training. You are very welcome to go to the Moodle site and go straight to the assessment for the badge that you'd like to earn. So,
Susan, let me also point out that Jeff Sale from your group just posted a blog about the badging program on the SIG-HPC Education blog site.
Great. Yes, I knew that was coming. I didn't know it was actually posted, so that's great. Steve mentioned Jeff Sale. The people who are actively developing the badges in the training group are Jeff Sale from SDSC and Sandy Kappas from NCSA. So Jeff did a blog post. Will there also be a presentation at some point?
I haven't talked him into that yet, but maybe I will.
Okay, great. And again, we're interested in input on what topics you might like to see next on the badges.
I do have a question here. Somebody posted, while running a webinar type of training, one of the challenges is how to help out participants when they have problems with hands-on exercises, and how is that organized in XSEDE trainings?
That's a great question, and I'm afraid that the answer varies. So when XSEDE trainers run a webinar, they're running it from their local site. So sometimes webinars are run by, organized by Jason Allison at TAC, and he uses a different format than when Tom Maiden is running a webinar from PSC, and that's different from when Jeff Sale is running a webinar from SDSC. So they're using, I believe, different platforms, and how they're, whether they're managing chat questions like Steve is right now as the moderator is what I presume everyone is doing in different ways, but I'm not 100% sure. That's typically what I've seen. I'm open to comments, please.
For the ones that are multicast, I believe that the local people are asked to provide some of that help locally for their local audiences. But.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the question was about webinars. If we're talking about the monthly multicast series, I know that they're using WebEx, and that Tom, while John is presenting, Tom is moderating the WebEx chat for any questions that come in. So everybody who's at any of the satellite sites is welcome, is encouraged to submit questions through the WebEx chat.
Yeah, well, I think the question might have applied to both, but I know that we've run some of the we've been a remote site at OSC for some of the webinars, and I believe some of our technical staff will, you can just raise your hand and ask a question locally as well. So it depends on how the session is set up.
Yeah, I expect that if the local moderator can answer the question, that's the best solution for everyone. And if the local moderator can't, then they can reach out to the person who's presenting.
Right.
I hope that answered the question.
Thank you.
Thanks. Roadmaps. This is also a project that Steve contributed to and contributed to starting in a big way while working with XSEDE Education, and we are working on populating this page in the portal right now with roadmaps. So if you go to Training Overview in the XSEDE portal, you see a number of topics here that we are going to be populating with roadmaps. So under Getting Started, if you're a new user to XSEDE and you're not sure what basic information you should understand before working on one of the resources, there are a number of things you can do, but if you'd like a roadmap to walk you through that, we are now starting to populate these topics as roadmaps. So the idea is that if you're just getting started, these are the main topics that we recommend going through, and in this order. And as you're walking through the topics, these are the ways that the various ways that you can acquire this information. So you don't know Linux yet. Well, we've got one Linux suggestion here. I think that we'll be providing other alternatives so that people have a choice. Maybe they want to go to a tutorial, maybe they want to go to a document, maybe they want to attend a class. But what we've discovered is this material needs to be updated even more frequently than other materials, and while this is a new shiny roadmap for us, we're already in our first round of updates. So we will be populating more of these topic areas with roadmaps as time goes on. There are also a number of things that we're doing to improve both the materials and themselves and which materials we're offering and information for people who are trying to select what to use. So the training group, whoops, I'm sorry, I clicked on it instead of, the training group is working with the ACO group to identify what new training topics are needed, and we're trying to collect information in a variety of ways. We've done user surveys. The main XSEDE training page has a button soliciting input. If anybody submits a help desk ticket with a suggestion, that will get to me. And we try to send out a quarterly email soliciting input for requested topics. Another ongoing activity that training works together with ECO on is a formal review process. So we've come up with a standard review form that we are working through all of our base materials to have them reviewed by 2 or more anonymous reviewers for each one to say, for a number of criteria, should this material be considered as reviewed and vetted, approved? I'm not sure what the right term is, but as we fill out and get more and more of these reviews done, we will be noting that on, let's see, going back to the portal, another page that I did not talk about is the course catalog. This course catalog includes all of the various types of training, and we'll probably be updating the format of this page in the not-too-distant future, but not the content. All of the detailed information you see here we intend to keep, but display a little bit differently. And the information about whether that material has been vetted or reviewed will be updated on this page as we get more reviews completed. If anybody out there wants to be a reviewer, I would be very happy to hear from you. We can never find enough reviewers. And finally, the XSEDE training group, we are trying to work with the larger community. Obviously, XSEDE training is not the only group out there that is working in this area, and I don't want us to focus our limited time on developing materials or processes that someone else has already perfected. There's plenty to do without duplicating effort. And so we are trying to be active in other activities, such as the SIG HPC EDU activities. I'm involved with 2 groups in that area, and I'm trying to stay aware of what's going on with the other groups. In addition, if we get recommendations to add select materials from the larger community to the XSEDE pages, such as the course listing that I just showed, we have a very lightweight review process. Is this a duplication? Is this appropriate to this audience? And we'll add those materials as well. So everything that I showed you today can be found on the XSEDE site, the Portal XSEDE site, and I'm happy to get any questions or suggestions, feedback that you have at any time. Steve, any questions, any additions?
So let me point out that we will post the video of this session along with your slides, if you send me those, on the SIG HPC Education webpage under events. So if anyone wants to have the slides with all of the links in them, they'll be there within a couple of days. That's at sighpceducation.acm.org. Are there other questions for Susan? Well, Susan, thank you. That was a wonderful overview of all the activities, training activities of XSEDE. We very much appreciate you taking the time to share this with our audience, and we'll get this posted. I'll send you a link to that so that if you want to point to it yourself for others to see, then you can do that as well.
Thank you, Steve, and everyone. I hope you can take advantage of the materials, attend events, and please do send input and feedback. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. Have a good day.